opposite of a clinic, horrendous match. So not smooth at all. Goldberg didn't really care. He's chewing gum during the match. Braun wins the match.
Yeah,
I don't know. We know where they're going with this, so I don't really want to discuss it.
right.
But I mean, what is that? Is that basically how you thought the match was going to end up? And do you think the match would
Yeah.
be any different if it was Reigns versus Goldberg?
It would have probably been a little bit longer. I could have seen them actually pulling off a couple more moves against each other. I believe that Goldberg probably would have had an easier time setting up Reigns for a jackhammer and a kick out or something. But again, we knew what this was going to be. It was just going to be a quick couple spears, couple power slams. It wasn't a great match. It wasn't even a match at all. It was just a very short fight. But the thing to take away is that Braun is now a world champion.
Yep.
And if they need him to feud with Roman Reigns, or maybe they have him feud with like Corbin before they jump into that, or you possibly have Bray and Braun, which hasn't really been touched as a feud since they were in the Wyatt family. There are a couple of possibilities here. So I'm happy for Braun. I think he deserved to win a world championship. It's probably a year or two too late from the moment he was probably the most popular and hot. But again, I have no issues with it. I knew the match was going to suck, but at least Braun won the title.
And then your favorite match of all time, which was 5 days of pre-production, took 8 hours to shoot, and that was the Boneyard match. We still don't know the rules to the match, but we assume it was a buried alive type of match, and The Undertaker won. I don't really like the way they booked AJ throughout this whole feud. He didn't get the upper hand once in the whole build-up. I don't really like the way this played out, but you did love the match, so go ahead and praise it.
I did. I think it was so cool because it felt like The Undertaker was like Steven Seagal in at the final scene, an action movie or something, where he's just like fighting everybody off. I like the fact that they had him come out on the motorcycle to Metallica. Having him as an American badass in that situation, I think, as like a hybrid character was really cool to watch. And I just like the theatrics of it. You know what I mean?
So what's next?
produced.
What's next for AJ? I think he has to drop Gallows and Anderson and go solo. I mean, they've done nothing good for him being associated with him. He's the solo guy. I think he should be a face. I don't know if we're going to see that anytime soon, but I don't know what's next for him.
Well, he's the face that runs the place.
Yeah,
he used to smack, but
that was good. That was a great run by him. And what's next for the Undertaker? Do we see him in Saudi Arabia, or do we maybe just wait until next WrestleMania, or is he done? What do you think?
I think he'll be back before the end of the year. I don't know if he'll be back by SummerSlam, but I'll say that he'll be involved in one more feud this year with somebody. Who? I don't know. It might be at SummerSlam, it might be at Survivor Series, but I think you'll see Taker one more time this year. And now we're to talk about AJ. I think the end of this, he'll come off with some more humility. So you might be right. He might come out of this and say, Gallows and Anderson, you weren't there for me when I needed you the most. You sucked. I'm better off without you. That's probably what's going to happen next. We might not see AJ for a couple of weeks on WWE TV to really sell the whole fact that he got buried alive. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
He should come back with a totally new gimmick, like haircut, just totally, that's what they should always do with these buried alive matches. But we'll see. Night 2, Liv Morgan gets a much-deserved win over Natalya, so that was good for her. And then you got the NXT Women's Championship match. Charlotte defeats Rhea Ripley, as I predicted. Now the news comes out this week that Rhea Ripley's work visa expired, so she's going to be back in Australia. So what do you take away from this whole situation and match, Joe?
It stinks. Like I said, so on the last podcast, I said that the match that I think was going to steal the show over the weekend was Charlotte Flair against Rhea Ripley. And this is my opinion. I don't know if you agree with me. I know you agree a decent amount with me. I thought it was the best match of the weekend. And now we're talking strictly in terms of like a wrestling match, like what happened in the Performance Center and in the ring. The match absolutely delivered. It was great. The psychology of the match was great. And you ended up being right. Charlotte won. And this is one of those situations where I feel like for Rhea, a lot of people think that she might have been buried. I hate that term. Nobody knows how to use it.
The only person who was buried was AJ. I mean, that's it.
That is correct. That is correct. So you have to remember, Rhea Ripley is 23 years old. Rhea Ripley just had the greatest 8-month stretch of her career. She went from NXT UK to NXT. She was involved with the War Games match at Survivor Series weekend, and she won that match for her team 4-on-2 down, which is impressive. She then went on to beat Shayna Baszler for the NXT title, and then she went on to challenge the 2020 Women's Royal Rumble winner Charlotte Flair for a match at WrestleMania. So this is one of those situations where the fact that Rhea was at a WrestleMania at 23 years old, wrestling Charlotte Flair and having the best match of the night, that's going to do wonders for her career. Now, when you look at Rhea Ripley's character, she's way more brawn than she is brains. She dives headfirst into everything. She's young. I wouldn't say she's immature, but she needs to learn the mental, tactical side of what it means to be a WWE superstar, right? So Charlotte got the best of her here. I guarantee you this is a match that we will see again. My prediction is that this is a match that you will see again at WrestleMania. Whether it happens next year, whether it happens the year after that, chances are this match will happen again at WrestleMania. These are probably two of the 3 or 4 best female talents in the entire company, and it showed.
Wow. So you are very high on Rhea Ripley.
We are, but I'm also high on Charlotte Flair because she absolutely elevated Rhea in that match. So a lot of people may not necessarily know who Rhea is because, again, she's strictly NXT. You've only really seen her on Raw and SmackDown a few times. You saw her on SmackDown before Survivor Series, and you saw her on Raw, I think, twice before WrestleMania. So a lot of the casual fans may have heard of her, but they don't really necessarily know her. So this was just to basically give you a taste of who Rhea Ripley is. And I think she passed with flying colors. I'm not really going to be concerned that she lost. I am concerned about the work visa situation and the fact that she has to now be an Australian. She will likely be in Australia until a lot of this stuff blows over and the travel restrictions are lifted and everything goes back to normal. So we shall see what happens with that, but you won't see Ripley on NXT TV likely for a couple of weeks. So,
and I just want to say sorry, Adam Cole, move over because this is the Queen's show now. I mean, it's going to be booked around her, which it should be. Next match, a match that went way too long, had the wrong winner. Aleister Black meets Bobby Lashley, and the only takeaway from this is that Lashley and Lana are headed for a divorce, and Lana is now a brunette. What are your thoughts on Lana's new hairstyle, Joe?
Well, I like Black. The match was better than I thought it was going to be, to be honest. It wasn't great by any stretch, but it was fine. The story they're clearly telling is a story you're getting at, is that Lashley is starting to get sick of Lana, and he said that in his post-WrestleMania match promo. So you will likely see at some point in the next couple of weeks Lashley kick Lana to the curb, which I think will benefit both of them.
So Lashley's going to go face there, or they're going to turn Lana face? Like, oh, the poor girl, she got dumped.
I think Lashley is going to go face.
Great,
because him heel right now is not working.
So
they need to give him a jolt.
So maybe we'll get that Lashley Lesnar match at some point.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
It's weird because I think a lot of people right now don't necessarily love seeing Lashley, but a lot of people want to see Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley, whether that's at SummerSlam, whether that's later on in the year at Survivor Series, whether they do it on another bigger pay-per-view or a smaller pay-per-view. It's a match people want to see, and I want to see it too. So, but yeah, so I think the right guy won here, and I think they're telling the right story. Bobby and Lana are headed for a divorce.
Now, in a true match, which really was totally, spoiled by no audience, and really, the audience is going to take away from what would have been literally an all-time great pop and WrestleMania moment. Like, you're talking right up there with Rock Hogan and Hogan Andre, and that was when Otis defeated Dolph Ziggler and he kissed Mandy Rose. Could you imagine that 80,000 people, how nuts they would have been going, other than a few people who were like, oh my gosh, Ziggler should have won. I mean, could you imagine the pop that you would have heard for Otis?
Yeah, this is the match that suffered for not being in front of 75,000 people. I think this match was fun, I'll be honest, because Sonya Deville came out to the ring with Ziggler, and Otis ended up coming out by himself. He wasn't with Tucker, and Mandy didn't come out until later in the match. So Otis kind of went at it alone for a bit, and Sonya was kind of like cheering on Dolph and saying like, come on, come on. And then as soon as Mandy comes out, everybody knew exactly what was happening, because she came out, she went right after Sonya, and then when she went around and low-blowed Ziggler, I was freaking out. I was so happy. And yeah, you're right. This would have been an all-time WrestleMania moment. This would have been like Savage, like Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth at WrestleMania, like times 10.
Yep.
This was like an all-time feel-good story. This was like the good guy won. You know what I mean? You don't see a lot of that in wrestling sometimes.
Right. Rick Pitino, new head coach at Iona College, big fan of this outcome. But yeah, I mean, keep an eye on these four for the next edition of the Mixed Match Challenge on Facebook whenever that happens. Also love to see the Miz and Asuka win again, but is this the year we finally see Mandy Rose get her much-deserved push and become, I don't know if she's going to become champion, but at least be in the title picture this year?
Yeah, I think so. I think a face, she's now obviously she turned face. I don't know if she'll win Money in the Bank necessarily, but I can see a situation where she has a match with Bayley for the title sometime in the next 2 or 3 months. I think that's very possible.
And we'll see if she manages Golden Machinery to a tag title. So we'll see. Next match here was a really long match. Randy Orton versus Edge. Edge won 36-43 was the time of the match, so over a half hour. Longest match of all WrestleMania. Well shot. I don't know if they did that in one shot or if it was broken up. But good effort by both men, and Edge gets his win. I'd imagine we don't see either guy for quite some time, and we probably won't see Edge until at least we have arenas full of people again.
Right. So yeah, I agree. It was a good match. It was too long. It was the second longest match in WrestleMania history, behind the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels Iron Man match from WrestleMania 12. And again, it was good. They went everywhere in the Performance Center. It was fun to track down, but considering that was the ending that they went with, they could have easily have chopped off 10 minutes of that match and given it to a couple of other talents. But I mean, it wasn't like it was a bad match. It was good. It was just too long. And in the case of me, who was watching with my grandma, who was actually a huge wrestling fan, she's the one who got me into it. And I made my mom watch it over the weekend. She tends to watch with us every now and then. They mostly liked everything. But the match that they didn't like the most was this match because of the length. They were just like, oh, it was too long. It dragged a little bit. So, I mean, this match was, I think, pretty 50-50 with everybody. Most people knew it was a good last man standing match, but just sometimes when you're watching something and it feels like it drags, when you get taken out of something, that's what I feel like a lot of this was here. A lot of people knew that Edge and Orton were like going above and beyond to try to really, hammer it home and entertain us. But again, I feel like 10 minutes of this could have probably been better used somewhere else during the show. But for what it was worth, it was a good match. Edge had a great showing. And you're right, you're probably not going to see both guys for at least a couple of months. So let's hope for the best, and let's hope that Edge now that he's back in the ring and doing stuff like this, let's hope he doesn't hurt himself, because the last thing you'd want is for somebody to come back and then to have to go right back out on the shelf.
Next match.